afternoon, Cherry Blossom Arts. Welcome to Daily Shakespeare for Kids 7+. This is my very special guest, Harry.
Hello.
And he has come to you from my garden. We are socially distancing right now. Harry, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Harry. I'm about to graduate from university where I've done loads and loads of theatre, and I'm really excited to have this outlet for performing in lockdown and to share a Shakespeare story with you.
Yay! Harry is also somebody very close to our heart. He's part of the Cherry Blossom family, and I hope that you get to see him more in the future. But for now, Harry, what are you bringing the Cherry Blossom family today?
Today we are reading King Lear,
Whoop,
Shakespeare
whoop.
Stories.
I'm really looking forward to this one. So guys, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Harry and I'm going to socially distance over there and listen to the story. Enjoy! Harry, let me know if you're happy with this. Connection failure, don't worry. Oh yeah,
Good.
we're back. If you see the connection failure come up, just pause.
Will do. Right, so yes, today, King Lear. And I open on the cast list for you all. We have, of course, King Lear, King of Britain, Cordelia, Lear's daughter, Goneril, another of Lear's daughters, and wife of the Duke of Albany, Regan, yet another of Lear's daughters, wife of the Duke of Cornwall. Then we have the Earl of Gloucester, Lear's oldest friend and ally, Edgar, Gloucester's heir, Earl of Kent, Lear's faithful servant, Edmund, Gloucester's illegitimate son. We'll have to watch out for him because he's a little bit of a sneaky one. And the scene is ancient Britain, a very long time ago. And we start with a quotation from Act 1, Scene 1 of the original text. "Better thou hadst not been born than not to have pleased me better." King Lear. In his youth, Lear had won the crown of Britain through his strength, courage, and cunning, and he had enjoyed ruling the country. Now he was old. His eyes were dull, his hair white, and his face wrinkled. The aged king addressed the nobles he had summoned to his throne room. "I intend to give up the crown before the strain of ruling becomes too much," he said. "Britain will be divided into 3 to be ruled by my daughters. The richest part will be given to the one who loves me most. Goneril, my eldest child, wife of Albany. How much do you love me?" Goneril had red hair and a haughty expression. "I love you more than words can say," she declared, "more than my own life." Lear smiled. "And what does my second daughter, Regan, wife of Cornwall, have to say?" he demanded. Regan's golden curls and simpering smile masked her greed and slyness. "My love is greater than Goneril's," she claimed. "My only true pleasure is your happiness." Lear nodded and spoke to his youngest daughter, Cordelia. She was being wooed by the King of France, who was present. "Now, dearest daughter," Lear said affectionately, "what have you to tell me?" Cordelia's black hair and dark gown emphasized the paleness of her face. She struggled to speak, then blurted out, "Nothing, my lord." Lear frowned. "Nothing?" he snapped. "If you say nothing, you'll get nothing. Speak again." "I'm not like my sisters," Cordelia cried. "I can't flatter you with empty words. I love you as much as a daughter ought to love her father. No more, no less, and that's the truth." Lear's face flushed dark with fury. "Then let the truth be your only dowry, for you'll get nothing from me," he hissed. "Goneril and Regan can share your third of the kingdom. Leave my court and my heart. You are no daughter of mine." Cordelia lowered her head and wept silently. "My power now passes to my 2 remaining daughters," Lear went on. "I shall keep the title of king and a company of 100 knights. You will spend alternate months with Goneril and Regan." A stocky, grey-haired man stepped forwards. He was the Earl of Kent, Lear's most trusted and loyal servant. "My lord, have you gone mad?" he spluttered. "Anyone can see how Cordelia loves you. You're making a foolish mistake." Rage brought Lear to his feet. His hand trembled as he pointed at Kent. "I banish you," he screeched. "You have 5 days to make yourself ready. After that, if you're found anywhere in my kingdom, you will be executed." Kent left without saying another word. Lear spoke to the King of France. "Since my daughter has no dowry, I will understand if you withdraw your marriage offer," he said. The French king's gaze was fixed on Cordelia. "Cordelia's honesty makes me love her even more," he announced. "I would be honoured to marry her." "Then take her, with my curse upon her," growled Lear. "I wish she had never been born." The old king swept out of the throne room, and the nobles followed him. But Goneril and Regan lingered, whispering together in a shadowy corner. "The old man is losing his wits," murmured Regan. "He always loved Cordelia best, and now he has left her penniless." "And even though he has given up the crown, he banished Kent," Goneril pointed out. "I fear he is going to interfere with every decision we make. Our lives will be in misery." "Then we must do something to stop him," said Regan. When the Earl of Gloucester returned to his castle, the scene he had witnessed in Lear's throne room still burned in his mind. "My old friend Kent banished," he muttered to himself. "Lear giving up his throne. What is the world coming to?" Gloucester was so deep in thought that he almost collided with Edmund, his illegitimate son. For years Edmund had lived secretly abroad, and as far as the nobles at court knew, Gloucester's only child and heir was his son Edgar. The recent death of his wife had made the Earl realise how old he was getting, and he had sent for Edmund, hoping they would get to know each other a little better. Edmund seemed startled when his father appeared, and stuffed a sheet of paper into the pocket of his doublet. "What's that?" Gloucester inquired. "Nothing," said Edmund. "If it's nothing, why are you trying to hide it?" Gloucester said. "It's a letter from Edgar," Edmund admitted. "I hid it because I thought it would upset you." "Let me see for myself," Gloucester insisted. Edmund obediently handed his father the letter. "Father grows weaker and more foolish every day," Gloucester read aloud. "Why should we have to wait to enjoy what is rightfully ours? Join forces with me. We can get rid of the old man and share his fortune. Your brother, Edgar." Shock turned Gloucester's face grey. "How could my son have written this?" he mumbled. "But the handwriting looks like his." "Edgar must have meant it as a test, or a joke," suggested Edmund. "I'll give him joke," snarled Gloucester. "I'll have him arrested and imprisoned." The Earl hurried off down a nearby corridor. When he was alone, Edmund chuckled. "I knew that forging your handwriting would prove useful, Edgar," he gloated. "My half-brother is too noble to suspect me of treachery, and my father will believe anything I tell him. Perfect! That will make it easy to take revenge on them for all the years that they ignored me." Instead of leaving Britain, Kent shaved off his hair, disguised himself as a poor man, and managed to get a job as Lear's servant. Before long, Kent noticed that all was not well. Goneril found fault with almost everything that Lear did, and he often lost his temper with her, suddenly flying into a ranting rage. One afternoon, Lear was in his private chamber, chatting to his fool and Kent, when Goneril and Albany came in. Goneril scowled at her father. "Why are you frowning, daughter?" said Lear. "You didn't care about her. Now, I'm better than you. I'm a fool, but you are nothing." "I frown because your fool makes fun of me," said Goneril, "and because your knights do nothing but eat, drink, and quarrel with my servants. Since you refuse to do anything about this, I must deal with it myself. Half your knights will be sent away." Lear concealed his humiliation with sarcasm. "Do you know me?" he said to the fool and Kent. I can't be Lear. Goneril would never speak to her father the way she spoke to me. But if I'm not Lear, who am I? Lear's shadow, muttered the fool. Lear looked up at the ceiling. Gods, if Goneril has a child, let it be ungrateful and disobedient so that she can feel what I am feeling, he cried. I'll go to Regan. When she hears how you've treated me, she will tear your face with her nails. Lear stormed out of the chamber with the fool and Kent close behind. Albany glanced anxiously at his wife. Is this wise? He said. Your father might make trouble between you and Regan. I sent Regan a letter explaining what I intended to do, and she approved, replied Goneril. My father is no longer king. His tantrums are no more than the squalling of a brat. Albany said nothing, but inside he was alarmed at how hard-hearted his wife had become. Regan and Cornwall were staying as Gloucester's guests. Accompanied by Kent and the fool, Lear rode to Gloucester's castle. They arrived at dusk. The sky was dark with clouds, and distant thunder rumbled. To Lear's dismay, he was greeted by both Regan and Goneril, as well as Gloucester, Edmund, and Cornwall. Regan, how can you bear your sister's company after the way she has insulted me? Lear whined. She wants to give up half my knights. I don't see why you need any knights at all, Regan responded. If you stay with me, you must... But I must have knights, spluttered Lear. I am king. You were king, Goneril corrected him. In the sudden glare of a lightning bolt, Lear saw his daughter's cruelty and coldness. The love they had once declared for him was a lie. The old man clutched the fool's arm for support. I'll go mad if I stay here, he gasped. The fool and Kent helped Lear remount his horse as a heavy rain began. Where will you shelter, my lord? Gloucester called out. In a ditch for all I care, said Regan. A good soaking might bring him to his senses. Goneril laughed at this remark. Then she, Regan, and Cornwall retreated into the castle. It's not natural for children to treat their father so heartlessly, said Gloucester. There is going to be trouble, Edmund. Albany and Cornwall are bound to fight each other sooner or later. Gloucester lowered his voice. And besides that, I had a letter from Cordelia this morning. She means to rescue her father from her sisters, and a French army has landed near Dover. If Cornwall knew about the letter, he would charge me with treason. Edmund smiled. Don't worry, father, he said. Cornwall will learn nothing from me. Outside an abandoned barn on the outskirts of Gloucester's lands, Lear stood in the lashing rain, shaking his fists at the sky. He was in the grip of a peculiar madness that made him see the truth more clearly than when he had been sane. Thunder and lightning, strike me down, he raved. I thought I was a king, but I'm a feeble old man, so useless that my own daughters don't want me. Kent emerged from the barn and led Lear inside, to where the fool shivered by a small fire. Something moved in the shadows. Who's there? Rasped Kent, reaching for his dagger. Poor Tom's cold, a voice screeched, and a weird figure leapt into the light. It was Gloucester's son, Edgar. To escape arrest, he had dressed in rags and smeared his face and hair with mud. If anyone spoke to him, he pretended to be mad. The foul fiend is after me, Edgar whimpered. Poor soul, exclaimed Lear. Did he give everything away to his daughters too? Just then, Gloucester ducked into the barn, lantern in hand. When Edgar saw his father, he screamed and dashed out into the storm. I must speak with the king, Gloucester announced. He wouldn't understand you, sir, Kent said grimly. He has been driven out of his mind. No wonder when Goneril and Regan are plotting against him, said Gloucester. His life is in danger. Take him to Dover. The French king and his army have landed there. Cordelia is with them. When he heard this news, Kent felt a glimmer of hope for Lear. Gloucester paid dearly for his loyalty to the old king. The moment he arrived back at his castle, he was seized and brought before Cornwall and Regan, who charged him with treason. Edmund had shown Cornwall the letter from Cordelia and had been rewarded with his father's title. Encouraged by Regan, Cornwall tore out Gloucester's left eye. One of Cornwall's servants tried to stop the torture. He fought his master and was killed. Cornwall gouged out Gloucester's other eye, but the Duke had been seriously wounded. Shortly after Gloucester was turned out of his own home, Cornwall was dead. Gloucester spent the rest of the night wandering along country lanes before weariness overcame him, and he sank down to sleep in a hedgerow. He was still there the following morning when Edgar chanced upon him. 3 days later, in a meadow that overlooked Dover, Lear woke to see Cordelia smiling at him. All Lear's rage had been replaced by a childlike gentleness. At first he thought he was still asleep and dreaming, but at last he realized that Cordelia was real. Forgive me, I'm very old and forgetful, but aren't you my daughter? He asked. I am, said Cordelia. I know you can't love me, Lear said, frowning. Your sisters hate me for no reason, but you have good reason to scorn me. How could I scorn you? Cordelia said gently. You're my father. I love you as a daughter should. She had told him so in the throne room, and he had been furious. Now Lear knew the value of her words, and he wept. Lear's happiness was short-lived. Cordelia's husband was forced to return to France. In his absence, the English struck. The forces of Albany and Cornwall joined to drive out the invaders. Regan and Goneril took part in the battle, and Edmund fought at Regan's side. Regan planned to marry, and did not know that Edmund had also won Goneril's affection. He had written to her in secret, offering to marry her after she had got rid of Albany. Edmund had cleverly set the two sisters against each other. The French were defeated and took ship for France. Lear and Cordelia were captured and sent to Edmund. Imprison them and keep a close watch on them until their fates have been decided, Edmund told the captain of the guard. Lear was delighted. We'll be like two birds in a cage, he said to Cordelia. We'll tell tales of the foolishness of kings. Edmund leaned close to the captain. Take this paper, carry out the order written on it, and you'll be rewarded, he promised in a whisper. An hour later, the victors gathered. Goneril gave Edmund a lingering look. Regan's face was ashen, and she kept clutching her stomach. Goneril had poured poison into her sister's wine the previous night, and it had begun to work. Albany was angry. Where are the royal prisoners, Edmund? He demanded. I ordered them to be taken away, said Edmund. You had no right to give orders. I am in command here, Albany growled. Guards, fetch the prisoners. As the guards marched off, Regan groaned. I am sick, and sank to her knees. Albany ordered 2 soldiers to carry Regan to her tent. Then he turned to Edmund. Now the battle is over, I can turn to other matters, he said. I know that you've been sending letters to my wife, Edmund, you filthy traitor. Edmund flung one of his gauntlets at Albany's feet. No one calls me a traitor unless he's willing to fight me to the death, he cried. I will fight him, Lord Albany. someone said, and an armed stranger stepped. His face was hidden under the visor of his helmet. "Who are you?" Edmund sneered. "Someone who knows that you are a cheat and a liar," the stranger said. Edmund drew his sword and ran at his mysterious opponent. The fight was brutal and brief. After exchanging several blows, Edmund stumbled as he tried to trip up the stranger. He dropped his guard, and the edge of the stranger's sword bit deep into his side. Edmund fell. "Save him!" shouted Goneril. She made to move towards Edmund, but Albany held her back. "He has got what he deserved," said Albany, "and so will you, Goneril. I know you were planning to kill me, and I'm going to put you on trial for it." "Stand trial? Like a common criminal? Never!" screeched Goneril. She broke from her husband's grasp and rushed away before anyone could stop her. The stranger removed his helmet so that the dying Edmund could see him. "Edgar," croaked Edmund. "Father died of a broken heart because you betrayed him," Edgar said. "Now he is avenged." A messenger scurried up to Albany. "Your wife is dead, my lord," he panted. "She stabbed herself, and her sister Regan died at the same instant." A terrible cry ran. Everybody turned their heads and saw Lear approaching, carrying Cordelia's dead body in his arms. Kent trailed behind. "Why aren't you all howling in misery?" sobbed Lear. "Don't you understand? She's dead. She'll never come back." He laid Cordelia down, crouched at her side, and rocked himself back and forth. "Why should a dog or a rat have life, and not you?" he whimpered. Albany was appalled. "How did this happen?" he asked Kent. "Edmund ordered Cordelia to be strangled," Kent explained. "They hanged the fool, too." Lear pointed at Cordelia. "Look," he urged. "She is breathing. She has come back to life." No one could bring himself to say that the old man's eyes were playing tricks on him. Lear's weary heart stopped beating, and he collapsed on Cordelia's body. "The old have suffered most," Albany said quietly. "I hope I won't have to suffer when I'm old." Though nobody spoke, all who heard him shared the same hope. And to finish, we have a quotation from Act 4, Scene. "I am a very foolish, fond old man." And there we have it.
The end.
Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Yay! I'm just going to come over here. I'm ever so sorry about the internet connection problems today, but thank you for bearing with us. Who've we had? Today we've had Katie and Mark watching. How kind of you. But thank you to those who watch us on live, and thank you to those of you who watch us on playback as well. These videos are getting thousands of views, so thank you so much for watching. Harry, do you want to say anything else to the audience before you go today?
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the story.
Absolutely. We have another Shakespeare story tomorrow with guest storyteller Angus. We're on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays live at 5 o'clock. But for today, thanks so much for watching.